My name's Shashi Vyas. I'm basically from London, as they say at the moment. Used to be a Bristolian, but my journey started basically at Bristol. I'm an aerospace engineer by trade. Father passed away, and then had to move back down to London. That's where the EV journey started. I used to have a car company, a kit car company, which I bought called Nova Developments back in the days. Um, and then basically decided to go electric. The first, I think it was 98, I think it was. I think a year 2000, can't remember. Um, Decided that I think the electric will be the future a long time ago. And then basically went over to India in 2006, um, set up a company there to do electric cars. But before that, I was working for a company called Reuters, Lockheed, BA Systems. As I started off as a propulsion engineer, and then nuclear propulsion engineer, and then in top management, etc. And then moved over once I was back in London. Basically, did some work for a company called Filmbox. That's where the entrepreneurial journey started as well. We were going to be the first Netflix of the world. We used to do DVD rental machines in supermarkets. And then from there, we were about a year out before the broadband, revolution came about. Otherwise, we would have been Netflix because we would have gone online and given the videos online and DVDs online, etc., like Netflix did. Um, but anyway, the company closed and then started the journey with the EV cars in 2006. Obviously, at the same time, I was doing my day job as well, working with Apple. And, and from 2006, I think, fast forward to 2011, where we first built off a prototype, I think in 2011 in Vibrant Gujarat at the Modi event in Ahmedabad in Gujarat. That's where you see the yellow cars. If you Google India's first electric sports car manufacturer, you'll see the cars. Um, so we then had to decide to take it into production. So we had to basically build a car that we needed to test for type approval. Fast forward to 2014, where we were at the IPL event with David Warner and a few other IPL cricket players, etc., at the Chhattisgarh Stadium, the new one with the Delhi Capitals, I think it was. We had a car showcase there, the second prototype. And then moving on, 2017, we started doing the type approval for the third and final prototype for the production car, which I think I've sent you, which I'm sure you'll be able to probably give. So we had to rewrite policies in India with the local, ROSA equivalent, which is the ARAI there, because obviously they didn't have an EV policy. So we started the EV policy. We were the first to do the electric cars in India. And that's where we got approval as per 2020 rules. Um, and then came COVID, which was in 2021 or 2020, I think it was. 3 years. Father passed away. Sorry to say, I think 2 years ago, and then that's where the journey has come to a pause. And we've decided to either move now back to the UK because of the new tax and customs laws have changed in India, which now allows us to import cars in for only 20%. So which makes my life easier. I don't have to spend more money basically to get the cars approved now as per 2025 rules, which will cost some more hundreds of thousands, even a couple of million, I think it is, because we have to produce a few amount of cars and then sell them, and then send them to crash testing, etc. Driver's airbag, ABS, reverse parking sensors, etc. So that's who I am, where I am at the moment. We have one private investor on board for the company. We produce basically niche sports cars, EV sports cars. We're the first in India. We don't want to be a Ford or a Tata or a GM or a Volkswagen or a Mahindra. We want to be a McLaren, a Lamborghini, a Ferrari of Asia, a Rimac of Asia. We plan to sell around about I think it's around about 2,500 to 5,000 cars a year only. We cater. I know it sounds, you know, not. I shouldn't say cruel, but it sounds a bit, you know. But no, we're aiming for, the sports car market. We're aiming for the middle class, the rich, super rich. But also, I say that, but I'm not any one of those. But I prefer my sports car, so I aim to get one, and I do get one, and I've worked hard at it, and I don't think any person should be, if they wanting a sports car, should be allowed to get one, and should we as car companies, McLaren or Lamborghini, Ferrari, whoever they are, should be able to help whoever wants to get it. I think that's more important because obviously they are the ones who are the fans. They are the ones who basically shout it out louder than everybody else. Um, they aspire to it, they want to get it, and I think they're the ones who are more important than anybody else because they're not the mundane. They're the ones who think out of the box, looking for beautiful things in the world, and I think those people are more important than the others, the latter.
No, super fascinating. Is there anything you can share in terms of target markets you're going after in terms of geographics, and then anything around sort of price, specs, etc.?
So we started off, because obviously Asia and India is a different market. There was an incident whereby Sachin Tendulkar, the cricketer, he loved sports cars so much he tried to import one in. That's where the idea came in. So I think it was in 2007, he tried to import a Ferrari in to India, and it took him 2 years, 2 years to clear his Ferrari through customs. He also had to pay, not that he couldn't afford it, he had to pay a 200% duty, uh, which is fascinating. So he paid I think it was £150,000 for the car, and then he had to pay another 300,000 and wait 2 years for the car to be cleared through customs, which was crazy. Hence, the decision was to take the car company to India and to produce it in India. Shock and belief, and to my fear and to my naivety, not realizing the obstacles that I'm going to face, or I was going to face, and I'm still facing even today, with the larger players like Tata, like Mahindra, like Suzuki, Maruti, and a few other indigenous. I think there's only a couple of more indigenous players who did not want foreign players coming into the market, which was a shame, because India is a huge market. It's double the size of Europe in landmass and triple the size in population. So to have a fear of, obviously, certain players, but they shouldn't have had fears of smaller players like us. They put obstacles in our way when it came to testing, type approval, because they had a lot more sway into these agencies, the type approval agencies. So it was very tough. It was luckily because I knew the BJP government at that time, and I knew Modi himself because obviously I'm from Gujarat as well. Well, I'm not from Gujarat, I'm from Mumbai, but the wife is from Gujarat and so on. But because I used to live there, my father was obviously part of the government at that time, was helping push for the type approval. And, smaller players like myself and a few others who wanted to, what's the word? Create a foundation, create a base, create a new avenue, create a new business model, whatever you want to call it. I was trying to get into the market whereby the market was really closed off to anybody who, would try to come in, and they would be shut down, they would be pushed pillar to post. I think so. That's luckily where I had some helping hand, and which helped, but it didn't help too much because obviously we ended up spending a lot of money. Well, I spending a lot of my own money trying to get the car type approved when I didn't need to, because obviously their rules are totally different. A small manufacturer has to go through the same rules as a large manufacturer like Tata, like Ford, like Mahindra, which is which is wrong because you're not helping entrepreneurs come into the market with fresh ideas, fresh designs, and so on. And that's where I think the Indian market has failed. The Indian market mostly caters for high volume manufacturing cars. Fair enough, the safety aspect of it, but the safety aspect comes in anyway. When you're a sports car manufacturer, you don't want a car going, you're going to build a car which is very safe. That's one. Okay, fair enough. It's fast as well, but you don't see a McLaren not being safe. You don't see a Ferrari or a Lamborghini not being safe, or a Rimac, So our goal was always to make a car. My car has got a space frame chassis. It's like a cocoon. So the car itself was very safe. But because of this stupid car EV policies that India had, that's why the entrepreneurial journey has always hit a stumbling block. And I think if India opened up for the sports car manufacturers of low volume manufacturing like they do in Europe and in America and Japan, then you'll have this new business flourishing idea, that not only, India is a very young population. I think 67%, close to 70% of the population is between the ages of, I think, 18 and only 32, I think it is. That's young. That's crazily young. And 70% of 1.5 billion people, that's a lot of young people that want, a good looking sports car, good looking car. So our goal was to basically provide an affordable sports car for the Indian market, but also, obviously, there are different models and different, specs of the car that we were giving. So let's say a Dhoni would who we had meetings with anyway, and his team, Arun Bhai, would, let's say, have a dual motor 0 to 60 3-second car, whereas a normal affordable sports car would have a 5-second car, because the cost would be something like 40,000, 45,000 to 90,000. That was our main goal of, of providing a, hypercar design for an affordable price, because obviously the Indian market is very price conscious, and even the rich people are very tight when they're spending certain money. But they like a good deal, and they like it. But the main thing is they do like cars that look beautiful, and that was our main goal. So
Just looking at the first of all, thanks for sharing that. That's super fascinating. If we look at the automotive value chain, sort of starting with design to engineering to manufacturing to the customer and commercial side, so surfacing that to customers, would you mind just walking me through on a high level how you approach the different stages? So from design, what should the vehicle look like, to engineering, what are the specifications, etc., and then maybe even the sort of the bread and butter business in terms of manufacturing, finding a manufacturer and establishing supply chains. That would be, I think, super interesting.
So India was very difficult. Design was one of the biggest things that we had to change from the original car itself. Bringing a kit car company to India thought it was going to be an easy thing, but it wasn't. So we had to change the design. So me and a couple of other guys changed the design to the final design that I think you've got. So we had to change the design of the car, design of the chassis, build a new chassis. Plus it was electric as well, which didn't help. But in the end, it did help, because obviously we had to go through, instead of going through 180 tests or 200 tests, we only had to do, I think, 78 or 80 tests, because half those tests were related to pollution, etc. So, plus we went from 2,000 parts to 20,000 parts to 2,000, less than 2,000 parts. So the EV design was an easier thing, an easier, what's the word I'm looking for? An easier concept to grasp with, which helped. Now, in terms of the supply chain in India, there was no global supply chain. They didn't even know what electric cars were all about. I was 1 year ahead of Tesla and Elon at that time. Me and Elon even spoke, I think it was in 2010, 2011, when he was having difficulties, when he heard about my launch in 2011. I think I've got some conversations with him from my Twitter days with him, and he wanted to know of how, you know, and I think it was, I remember, and it's not a claim to fame, but we did have a conversation. I did have a conversation with Richard Spat.
Certainly quite a flex, yeah.
Yeah, when he was not so famous. So, and I told him, and I mean, whether he remembers or not, I'm sure he can dig up the Twitter files, and he can probably find, me and etc. Well, I spoke to him and I said to him that he need loyal people. The people who he had with him were not loyal. They were oil lobbyists. Wanted to destroy his company, which turned out to be true. Um, so I think, I think he had a big wake up call in 2009, and then 2011 he started to obviously then split his money, the last 100 million, into Tesla and SpaceX. So when we had a conversation, we finished off whereby I told him to, have loyal people on board, because without loyalty, he's not going to get in where he will be. Uh, there are people who will try and destroy him again, like the BBC did, like a few other people did when he gave his car in. So, in terms of the supply chain, going back to the supply chain in India, there wasn't any, and we had to go to EV motors, or I should say, motor manufacturers in India, because we couldn't import anything in. So my journey was very difficult, where I had to find motor suppliers, battery suppliers in India at that time, which India didn't even know what it was, where it was, how it was. So after this success in 2016 of Tesla, I think people were slowly, manufacturers, supply chains, the OEMs were slowly now digging in, saying, look, we need to get some motors in, we need to build our own motors, we need to get our own batteries, lithium battery suppliers, and so on. So I think it changed in 2017, just when we were getting the car approved. Um, Still, the supply chain industry is still not there yet in India, um, but it's getting there heavily now. It's getting there very heavily now, because um, the biggest car companies like Hyundai, Kia, Tata, obviously, Mahindra is now into it, Ford, GM, um, even now Tesla is coming in, have now got the local manufacturing companies, local supply chains, local OEMs to produce motors, controllers, inverters, etc., for their cars, obviously, through licensing. But the the issue is, again, with all of that, is they're still catering for the large volume manufacturers instead
Mm.
of the niche ones. And that's where, again, the crux of the issue is that, you know, when India needs a new model, a new business model for cars, they don't have it. They're still, you know, thirsty for it. The people are thirsty for it. People are literally crying out for it across India. And I've been across India, and I've seen the youth wanting sports cars, wanting the sports car industry, a sports car. I was even part of the first EV Formula E with, I think it was Pencho or Sanchez. No, I think it was Sanchez who, that time, who first initiated. I said, I think we should do it. We should bring it to India as well as part of the. And it didn't pan through, but it has now. I think in Delhi they're doing the Formula E's now. I think last year was the first year. I think that's where the global supply chain come in, but they're slowly moving, or slowly providing a certain amount of parts for the low volume manufacturers. But again, I don't think it's going to happen until people like me or someone else who comes in and produces a sports car and starts selling it. Uh, um, because I think whoever is the first mover will benefit a lot. And that's what I have always wanted, to be a first mover. I was the first mover. I still am the first mover. And I'm hoping by next year, I think that dream happens, basically.
No, pretty exciting. If we sort of zoom out across India and look at the wider development of the EV market, I think many manufacturers are looking sort of towards India as the next big growth opportunity for their EV lineup, especially currently in light of some of the still tariff uncertainty in the US. And I mean, it's at the end of the day currently a very saturated market. It's not growing like India is. China is seen as difficult in some respects when it comes to regulation, and then also quite dominated at the moment by some of the new entrants, local new entrants. What is your prediction in terms of the development of the EV market in India over the coming years in terms of
So,
players and types of vehicles?
like I said, I think, let me explain to you about the world in that respect of what you said. Now, people like Winfast, people like Hyundai even, and a few other car manufacturers have failed in New York, in America. The issue is Fisker as well. That's another one. So the issue has been that the legacy car companies have failed also, just like Nokia, to keep up. And the fault has not been the fault has been one of the car companies themselves, but the owners, but also the top management. That's where they've failed. The issue has been that the top management have been funded, or the companies, the legacy medias have been always been funded by the lobbyists, as you want to call them. And when you had a situation where they failed, when they saw the success of Tesla and how people related, people wanted the, you know, the fact is that people like you and me, people like the world, want to save the world. End of story. End of story. People want to save the world. We recycle. We put our plastics in the plastic. We put our cardboards in the cardboard. So people related to Tesla, people related to Elon, people related to saving the world. The legacy media companies failed to recognize that. Failed literally miserably. Failed to recognize it. Tesla went parabolic because they knew what people wanted before anything else. So the failure also turned out to be of the management. What you had was, you had a car, an EV car, which can now be produced with only 2,000 parts and not 20,000 parts, was an eye opener for the management, for creators, designers, etc. Blah blah blah. The problem was they didn't have the experience, they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the acumen to go, do you know what? I need to get trained up. I need to do this. I need to do that. No, they thought their egos and their arrogance became exactly Nokia. Oh no, we're too big. We're not, we're not going to be. Nobody's going to take us over, etc. People, nobody's going to buy electrons. So it's rubbish. And that was their downfall, and it still is. It still is today. Fisker is another one which went down. Faraday went down. There was, I think, 200 EV car companies in China that went down. Volkswagen's closed up factories in Germany. Mercedes, etc. Porsche is now dying. So the issue is still there. People are moving over to India. People are moving over to Asia to produce their cars because the backlash. The problem was, it was the backlash. So let's say out of the 20,000 parts required to build a car, those 20,000 to 2,000, what will happen to those car part companies? Well, just like Nokia, if you don't keep up, you're going to die. Understand the logistics of where the future is. If you don't understand the logistics of where the future is, then I'm sorry, but it's a cutthroat business, and you're in a cutthroat business. You're happy to cut other people, other companies through pricing, etc., and so on. That's all okay. But then reducing your car parts from 20,000 to 2,000 is not okay. And I find that very astonishing. So everybody, got together and said, no, oh no, we're not going to let EV, we're not going to change, blah, blah, blah. And this arrogancy has not only brought the downfall of even in the EV industry as well, don't get me wrong, but not only of the legacy car companies, but also big EV battery supplies and so on in Europe, because they're not understanding that the battery side of it became so expensive that the companies who are producing these batteries and China's who are producing these batteries instantly raise up the prices of these batteries to not only from the governments, basically threatening them to say, well, if you don't give me my fuel tax for the next 6 years or for 8 years worth of battery power, then we're gonna close you down. We're not gonna give you any, and that's where, like you said, the regulations in China, regulations in Europe, regulations in America came into effect. And that's where the battlegrounds were there. So, and these battlegrounds from the oil lobbyists to the governments to the legacy car medias, legacy car manufacturers, this is where it became ugly. And these management, I should say, and they were good. They were good in their job as a legacy car manufacturer. They were very good at what they were doing in the legacy car industry. But the EV car industry was a totally different baby, and that's where they fell, and they still are failing. And even again, I think Windrow closed down. I think yesterday. I'm sure I posted an article on it yesterday. Another car company going under. So, um, investors were all like being given this lovely dream about you're going to make money instantly from the EV industry. Invest in these car companies. But the issue was the management team. All those management teams were, I'm sorry to say, they were all paid, and I'm not all of them, okay, but I'll probably go far as 85% were paid for the companies to fail. And it's a very big allegation I'm making, but it's a true allegation. Because I know, because I've spoken to a lot of them. Um, and one of the biggest one was, I think, Fisker. Fisker tried with Karma first, with another, before that was another company, and then it became Fisker. So 3 times he had duped investors, 3 times, and 3 times they failed, paying themselves massive salaries, taking money out, doing the IPOs, etc., and so on as well. So I think it's come to a point whereby, China was going their own way. India was slowly doing their own thing, and doing the transition and we're just transitioning very in their own time and places, etc. China was going to take over the world, and Europe and America were fighting amongst themselves, and the legacy car manufacturers didn't have the right people in place and didn't understand the future. And that's where their destruction is and is happening at the moment. Now, how fast, how quick? It's happening quite fast at the moment, but it will slow because, again, they are still power players. The issue is they haven't got the right teams in place. They haven't got the right people like me in place, because I should say, I'm not being facetious or anything like that, but they would not employ people like me, because we don't know anything about, but we knew everything about EV cars. So, and how to produce them, how to run the global supply chain, where to find the global supply chain, etc. And that's where so many EV management teams have not been able to come in and show their loyalty to the legacy car companies, because the management that they had were, first of all, having a battle amongst themselves, but then also wanting to make sure that the EV industry would not take off. And that's where they failed. And the ones who did go into the EV car industry were backstabbing all the EV car manufacturers like Fisker, like a few others, Faraday, and so on, that it was a nasty thing that Europe and USA and even Japan, to a certain degree, are still battling today with it. And whereas China, India are slowly just moving over and providing the manufacturing capacity to export to the world for EVs. And look at Winfast. I think Winfast went into North Carolina, went, shit, why would I spend 2 billion and not even be a success like Fisker, and had to put so much money down just for land and everything else, whereas they were getting all of that free in India and had to pay literally had to only put down something like 750 million, have now got already 100,000 customers on day one of their order book. Every car company that is produced in India has become a success worldwide. Hyundai, Kia, Suzuki. These are success stories. Obviously, Tata as well, but Tata does it, exports it to the worldwide in different ways. The Jaguar Land Rover. So India and China are case bases where how it should be done and how cost effective it is. But the legacy car companies have this, they should still have obviously their own, bases in their own countries, etc. But the problem is they're just not run correctly. And the top management team that's where their failure is.
There are lots of predictions about how disruptive AI is across the entire automotive value chain, or could be, especially for new entrants in their space. So some of the, so I would say in China, new energy vehicles, specifically or predominantly battery electric vehicles. What do you think, what role does AI play in terms of the disruptive nature and efficiencies that companies can unlock through AI, especially in the earlier stages of their journey?
So the AI space is, look, now I do a lot of AI at the moment with FDAI. I'm on the board as well, and I do a lot of AI not in the automotive space, but in other areas. And I'll tell you what, the AI space is very scary because, especially in the automotive space, for countries like Africa, India, China, now, and even parts of Europe. Let me explain to you why. Now, the AI that's coming in, let's just push on one side of it, where the autonomous side of it. Now, the autonomous side is in America, it's feasible. I think even in probably some parts of South America, it's feasible. Some parts of Europe, it's feasible. You're not going to have it feasible across. I think even in China, some parts of it is feasible because of their way of their internal roads, infrastructure, etc. Some parts it is, but in China, Africa, India, even in Asia, it's not possible. Why? Because those countries haven't developed to a point whereby the problem is it's not about development, it's about the demographics. When you have a population, two biggest population, 1.5, 1.4 billion, and then 1 billion in Africa, and then another close to a billion in Asia, what you're having is huge amounts of population who have got jobs. AI cannot take their jobs. That is one of vote power. That is a demographic where those demographics control the government. You're not going to lose in India 180 million, or actually, I think it's 160 million, probably maybe less. I'll just go with the figure of 150 million taxi drivers. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Where are they going to go? It's just not going to happen. So the government have said, we will not have autonomous cars. We will not allow autonomous cars. They can have the capability, but we will not have them. China has allowed it. Africa has not allowed it, and Asia has not allowed it. Now, the governments of Europe and America are allowing it. Now, this is the one thing that the AI, which I think a lot of people around the world should take it on board. What the government is saying is, you can have AI, you can have autonomous cars doing everything, blah, 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 but we want the human input, your human being there. So what they're saying to you is what they're saying is now that I think they've just put a new policy, a white paper through. We will allow autonomous AI or autonomous, driving or whatever you want to call it, in VTOLs, air taxis, etc., etc. But we won't allow it in cars. But we will allow it if the person is there. Now, whether you pay the person a lesser amount, that's fine. But we want the person to be there. So you have this future whereby AI will be I'm in areas at the moment. I'm consulting with a few companies who've already, and people hate me for it, um, because some of the companies I've worked with have now lost probably, let's say a typical 100 company, 100 plus company, or 500 plus, they've lost 25% of the staff because of AI. It's a scary industry. The world needs to look for other business models, space tourism, other forms of business that needs to come out of AI. Now, there is an industry that I'm getting into at the moment, which is the robot repairing industry. Just like car repairs, the robot repairing industry is coming in. So I'm part of that gambit whereby, Tesla sells you an Optimus robot for 30,000. Yes, it might be guaranteed for 5 years, but after that, what are you going to do? There has to be an area. Yes, people will evolve, humanity will evolve, business happen. But if we can suggest that this is a new form of business idea that people should get into, people should skill up on it, then you have another area, just like mobile repairs and so on. When mobiles came in, iPhone came in, nobody knew how to repair an iPhone or replace a screen, etc. So it's this is what we're setting up now. Even coders are going to go, because now AI can code itself. It can diagnose itself. It can even run itself. You might be replaced. I might be replaced as a virtual, because AI is now getting you scanned, and you don't even have to be, you can sell yourself, your image, you know, don't even have to be, face to face like this. You know, I could be talking on a phone and my whole features of my face could be talking to you. AI is good, just like the internet was, but there is also the bad side of AI. And the same in the automotive space. AI will be good for the automotive space, but it'll also be bad for the automotive space, because unless and less the government of the world doesn't have something to give to people, they will have to slow it down. Because if they do not slow this down, there will be a massive, massive revolution coming in within the next 10, 15, 20 years. So I think what Elon is doing, and, getting the space tourism out, the robot side of it, and a few other things. But in return, you're getting another business coming out of it, just like Apple did. There'll be a new supply chain, robot batteries, robot arms, etc., etc., etc. So these industries will come about, but unless people talk about these industries, saying this is what the industry is going to be, this is what is going to happen, these are the things that will be sprouting from the next revolution of AI. People don't know about this, and people don't know because they've become so automaton to what life is today, that they don't understand. And this is where, like I said to you in the beginning, this is where the lacking is of the management team, who are sitting in their high seats, secure of their job, thinking, oh, I'm not going to leave because obviously, and they're protecting their jobs, which is fair enough. Everybody does. But when the destruction of their companies are not seen, then their own jobs are gone. So not understanding, the revolution, the evolution, is where the problem is, for the management of the world, basically owners, investors, etc. And AI is that, and that AI of automotive is, it's going to be a game changer for, even in manufacturing. AI is producing, like Elon said, that it means his gigacasting. The AI came up with so he has now simplified the process even more, to a point whereby he can now produce a car in less than 7 minutes. That's crazy. That's crazy, to produce a whole
Mm.
car in less than 7 minutes from start to finish. Toyota, who's the best manufacturer in the world, amazing, but they can produce one car every, I don't know, 28, 30 minutes or something, I don't know. But to produce a car in less than 7 minutes, that's AI for you.
Mm.
So, I think there's a lot to come, but let's see where it goes. So.
No, thank you so much for your thought-provoking perspectives. Really appreciate you making time for this as well. If people want to reach out to you and follow your journey, where can they find you?
Basically, I'm not going to give you my Twitter because it's a different handle at the moment. Um, so I, I am on Facebook. My company's called SNAV. I haven't used it too much. I don't use it too much because I'm not going to go to a point whereby until I launch, it's not going to happen. And so they can obviously contact me through the website as well, snev.in. Um, directly, obviously through LinkedIn as well.